Alien's Guide to Being an Earthling, a podcast with me, Dr. Khushboo, a consciousness-based guide to creating the life and living you know should be possible with, for, and on planet Earth. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 13 of Aliens Guides to Being an Earthling. I love that number. With me, Dr. Khushboo Shah. And today I have a very special guest, another alien navigating her life on this planet, and beautifully, I may say so. Not perfect, but absolutely beautifully. It's Viv Adcock. An Access Consciousness certified facilitator. She's been with Access over 19 years now. How does it get better? And she, as all the aliens, she also has many roles with Access. One of the main ones being she hosts a lot of the online classes. And cherry on top, she's a Talk to the Animals facilitator. And that's how I know her personally. That's how I met her first time, was on a Talk to the Animals class with her. So I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you, Viv, for being here.
You are most welcome, and it's my pleasure. And maybe I could go woof, woof, woof.
Totally. And I think the aliens out there would probably get you more. This conversation made the most sense. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. And with everyone that comes on the guests, I like to know, growing up as an alien, okay, and I mean it in every way. I mean it metaphorically and I mean it literally as well. But being different, can you tell me a little bit about how you were as a wee little baby or a child?
Yeah, and now I know what I know. I would have been quite an unusual child because I was just happy. Whatever I wanted to do, I just wanted to be happy. I was pretty self-contained. I didn't really need much entertainment. I was pretty self-sufficient, I think, in a lot of ways, just happy in my own company, but happiest the most around animals or just lying out on the grass in the back garden or climbing trees. So I was always this kind of nature spirit, I think, more than a child.
I get it. Oh, beautiful. So tell me, so as you grew up, what was happening? What made you look for something as different as Access Consciousness?
Well, it's an interesting story because when I was really young, my mum, we had a Sunday night routine, and the Sunday night routine was we would have dinner. Then my mum would wash my hair. I mean, I'm talking 6, 7 years old. She'd wash my hair, ready for school for the week. And we'd sit down and watch this TV program. So I grew up in the UK, but I live in Australia.
Oh.
And we used to watch this TV program back in the early 1970s, and it was called The World About Us. And every week it would be somewhere different on the planet, the Amazon jungle or the Himalayan mountains or the rivers of, Canada, and every week it would be a showcase of somewhere different on the earth and the animals that inhabited that area. So a mum would sit and narrate. She'd pretend that she was the, like say there's a mama bear and a baby bear. She would sit and pretend that she was the mama bear talking to the little bear, and then she'd narrate the little bear talking back to the mama bear. So it was always this kind of light-hearted conversation that she was entertaining herself and myself with, but it just added to a whole other level of curiosity and wonderment and adventure as a child. And my favorite movie as a child was The Jungle Book, which then was a children's, it was a cartoon narration. And that I watched it over and over and over again. And in those days, we had LPs, records, and we had the story of The Jungle Book on an LP. And I used to listen to it, attentively, just sit there and listen to the LP story on a really old record player. So there was obviously some very strong connection, and yet we weren't allowed to have animals in our household, which I still find bewildering, why they had children that really loved animals, but they wouldn't have a pet, so to speak.
Yeah.
I always managed to find we moved to a new area, and the girl across the road became my best friend, and her mum and dad had dogs, and they used to breed dogs. So I'd go and take their dogs to walk and hang out with the puppies. And then a girlfriend at school had two ponies, and so I used to go and ride her pony with her. So I always managed to pull in somehow some kind of animal companion, even though I didn't have to have them, at home.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Always started with the animal love affair. I love it. Ah, so okay, so take us through your teens. What is it that you were looking for that you maybe did something else before Access? What
Mhm.
was going on?
Yeah, I definitely, growing up, I made friends with a couple of girls at school. I'm talking teenage years when most girls were into boys and what have you. I was mucking horses out and riding horses bareback and getting muddy in winter in England. And like I say, I had a couple of friends with horses, and it was my every spare moment I had, whether it was after school or weekends, I'd jump on my bike and ride for about 2 miles to go to this paddock where these horses were, just to hang out either with the animals or with the people that loved animals. And
Mm.
I was in bliss. I was in bliss with a dirty, smelly set of clothes and dirty hands. And I wasn't interested in staying at home or, being a girly girl type thing. There was just this solace that I used to find with the animals. There was this peace and this, what really mattered to me. It was like this, dream that I could go and spend my time around the animals, which made my everyday living at school and that kind of thing a lot more bearable.
So tell me about school. Why was that difficult?
Well, I realized that I'm actually a very sociable creature. A lot of animals live in packs or herds
Yeah.
or, flocks or whatever. They're a herd animal. And I remember loving school for all the different interactions with the groups. Like I got on with all the groups. I wasn't a cool girl. I wasn't a nerdy girl. I wasn't a sporty girl. I
Yeah.
was across the board. I was friends with everybody. And the social aspect of school and getting to know people was what really inspired me. But learning, I mean, I'm a smart person, but I just
Yeah.
wasn't interested. It just didn't light me up.
Yeah. Because it's rotting things up. Okay, cool. So can you tell me something like some interaction with an animal when you were growing up? Maybe you had a difficult day or something, and then something. Is there any story like that where you just spent some time with some animal, maybe a horse, maybe a dog, and something moved in your world?
Yeah, funnily enough, I remember, um, I don't know how this happened, but I ended up with a wild rabbit. My
Yeah.
friend across the road, whose parents bred the dogs, she got this tame, lovely, white, soft, fluffy bunny rabbit. And somehow I ended up with this. It had obviously been captured. It was a wild rabbit. And so here she was, all cuddly, and she could have animals at her house, and I couldn't. So
Yeah.
kind of had this pet in secret that mum and dad didn't know about. Anyway, fast forward, my friend and I at that stage, we wanted to run away from home because, parents were horrible things and we just wanted to have our freedom. We were 13.
Mm.
So we packed, backpacks and ran away, but we'd left our animals with a friend of ours. Anyway, of course, we get fined by the police. We have to come home. And I was really worried about my rabbit not being fed. And mum said, amongst all their, anger and grumpiness and telling me off because I'd run away and they had to get the police to find us, we had this, they brought my rabbit home. So the rabbit actually got to come home and the rabbit hutch was in the back garden. And so I went, that was a bit of a wild thing to create. So
Nice.
anyway, this rabbit came into the house and it started to become really, really tame with me. And
Yeah.
it would come and it would run up to me and it would play games with me. It wouldn't do it with anybody else in the family. And so it kind of, through those years at school where I just didn't want to be there, exams and pressure. And I didn't apply myself, but my rabbit gave me this kind of other world that I could just relate to and I could relax into and create this incredible bond with a rabbit, a wild rabbit.
I love it. So what was it like talking to animals then?
Well, and that's a great question, Khushboo, because I wasn't talking, but obviously there was an unspoken, nonverbal, energetic exchange where this rabbit, you know, began to bond with me, began to trust me. And yes, I fed it, but it went above and beyond that. Like it
Yeah.
would follow me around the house. And anyway, it was just this there was just this non-verbal bond that I could physically see growing. And the more the rabbit became fond of me and would let me touch it, it would then come to me, and eventually it would hop into my lap and just fall asleep in my lap. That for me was the absolute magic of
Yeah.
wanting to have an animal that wasn't being forced or wasn't being controlled or contained. It was totally free to do whatever it wanted while it was running around in the house.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. And what a gift, right? I can totally imagine how as a kid that like the way you develop your communication, your brain, your body is relaxing, and like all of the different realms that you're accessing without really doing much, but just by
Yeah.
bonding with this animal.
Yeah, and what you said right there is the
Yeah,
key, bonding without doing much, because I think
yeah,
we're so hooked into it. That was the pressure with school. It was always do, achieve, accomplish, get good marks, look good, move up to the next higher group, it was like there was this constant pressure. And yet with the animal, everything was coming back to me, and yet I wasn't doing anything.
yeah. You just got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I find that that's, with a lot of the talk to the animals classes and sessions, and what a lot of people ask me for is that exact thing. They want to have this energetic communication and this energetic bond that is beyond words. It's beyond thinking. It's just a lightness
yeah.
where there is just this connection. Yeah.
Which is why most kids find it so much easier to bond with animals. And then as adults, you try to sort of do people thing in communicating with animals, and then it becomes a little tricky at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, school gets you out of that being. I think as when we're younger, we just want to play. It's like I'm going around to my friend's house to play. There was always this lightness, and you just got to do what you wanted in the moment.
Yeah.
And it was always kind of like this adventure for me when you got to have a weekend or some time with your friend. You never knew what you were going to get up to, but you
Yeah.
knew it was going to be fun. And then, of course, at some point, the switch flicks and we have to start getting into this whole thinking and this whirring of the machinery, if you like, of the mind. And we kind of forget. It gets lost, that playfulness and that curiosity gets lost, and it gets kind of
Yeah.
swamped by the academics, I think, of what a lot of us are entrained into.
Yeah. I agree. Wholeheartedly. Uh,
Mm,
so what made you look for access? What was your first class like? What is it that you were looking for?
yeah. Well, I'd gone from, a bit of a side note, but I actually trained in the UK as a chef, and
Oh,
I wanted to travel to Australia. I had this absolute, from the age of 6 or 7, I had this absolute fascination with Australia, particularly the marsupials, the kangaroos and the wallabies. And anyway, 22, I decided to come to Australia, and I didn't know it at the time. I was just coming for 12 months, and I worked for a very well-to-do yacht club in Sydney in the harbour,
yeah.
and they sponsored me for residency to stay in Australia. So I got my residency, and then I'm like, I'm done chefing. I don't like this anymore. And I found this massage course or something. So I went to do it just for something fun, but that opened a whole new door.
Mm.
So from massage, I went into kinesiology, which is kind of like muscle testing and talking to the
Yeah.
body via a muscle response. And then I got to a point with the kinesiology. I had a very, busy practice, and I'm like, I'm bored looking at people's problems and always dealing with issues. I want something good. When do I get the good stuff?
Yeah.
Then the book, Money Isn't the Problem, You Are, came into my life. A friend of mine gave me that, and I read that book. It took my life off this train track and trajectory and put me into a universe of no train track, but total possibilities and
Yeah.
adventure. And so once I started to read about the tools, and things started to change in my life just from reading this book. And I'm like, I want more of this. This is what I've always known should be available. Why isn't this taught in schools and families about some parents hand this to their kids? And
Yeah.
that was it. I haven't stopped. And that was 19 years ago. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So you started with Access, and it's been 19 years. Can you tell me how Talk to the Animals evolved then for you? Was it,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. So a friend of mine gave me the website after I read the book. She gave me the website to have a look at. And at that time, the front page of the Access website was a video of Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, working with some horses in a conscious rider class. And I'm like, forget the people, give me the animals. And he'd just written a book called Talk to the Animals. And as soon as I read that book, that was it. And because I'd been a facilitator for a while, Gary was starting to teach people to be conscious horse, conscious rider facilitators. So I took that to begin with. I think I might have taken one of the first conscious horse, conscious rider trainings in Texas. And that opened the door to the Talk to the Animals. And so, then the Talk to the Animals specialty was created based around the book. And we now have facilitators around the world that facilitate classes.
yeah, and I've attended some of those, and they are absolutely necessity in my point of view if you have an animal.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want a happy animal and
Yeah,
you like to have that animal totally integrate with your life, because a lot of the people I talk to, they come because they've got problems.
yeah,
It's never the animal. It's never the animal, unless they've gone through a history of abuse.
yeah,
But animals, even after a while with the right environment, they drop all the abuse as well.
yeah. And so, from my experience, honestly, I think if I didn't have these tools of talking to the animals, or if I hadn't read the book and if I hadn't done these classes, I think just dealing with regular dog stuff, because I'm talking about the dog that I have, would have been so difficult and trauma and drama. Like, honestly, I would know that it's okay, his body is going to heal from this. Um, and giving it that space to really
Yeah.
worrying about it. For me, the biggest thing was the worry that, for me, the worry that I would have had for my dog is completely
Mm-hmm.
gone. Like I trust him, I trust his body. It's not like it's perfect, but there's so much more ease to let the body do whatever it needs to when it does, and actually listen, and not worry and then not take him to the vet like 100 times
Yes. Yeah.
for little
Yeah.
things, because I think if I didn't have these tools, I would have doubted from what I know and what everybody tells
Yeah.
to actually talking to the animal and the body and having more peace and space, because it's such a different it's actually far more peaceful in their world than I think I would have made it for him. So,
And that's such a beautiful point that you bring up, Khushboo, because like I say, most people have problems with their animals, and they look at their animals, for instance, with anxiety or stress or whatever. They have very little awareness as to how they're adding to that animal's stress. Because obviously, if your children or your pets are sick or upset or worried or anxious, then more often than not, the owners go into then worry and stress, which kind of accelerates and escalates whatever's going on, rather than animals are purely energetic creatures. If they're stressed and you can be that cool, calm presence, you can de-escalate whatever it is for them.
yeah.
And this is where everything starts to change. You trusting yourself, you learning how to ask questions, you recognizing that you can quite simply, quite dynamically change and contribute to an animal's state. You know, it might not happen instantaneously, but it can happen very, very quickly with animals, because it's not a natural state for them to be stressed or to be anxious. They're willing to get over it really quickly and drop it and move on. They don't recreate it.
Drop it and move on. They don't recreate it.
Mm.
Oh, and wow. There's so many different places that I would like this conversation to go. And I'm like, wait, which one do I sort of pull at for the next bit? So, since this is Aliens Guide to Being an Earthling, can we talk about aliens? As in, most people that I know that have come on this podcast and people that probably will reach out, there's I know for the fact that it's actually easier for us to talk to animals. And they may have bought into something else, but it's definitely easier. So can you tell me what's the similarities, I may say, between aliens and animals communicating?
Well, I laugh at the word aliens because I used to rescue and rehabilitate greyhounds. If I move, which way is it? That way. That guy behind me, that's Cooper. He's a greyhound. If you can make that out, that's just his
Yeah,
mouth open.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah,
So, you know, I was sure he was alien. Poor thing. He'd been locked in a laboratory being tested
yeah,
for 18 months of his 2 years of his life. And he was such a basket case. We didn't know whether we'd be able to pull him back, but we did. But the reason why I'm going into that conversation with aliens is he was such a different animal to work with because of what he had been through, because of what he had endured.
yeah,
You know, from being as a medical experiment dog, basically, in a laboratory.
yeah,
So, you know, learning to communicate with him took me to a whole other level, because all the other skills that I had with other animals that had been abused, he was so terrified and so shut down that it took an even, I guess, even more allowance, even more patience, even less expectation of anything on him or me, because, you know, I wanted to kind of see if he could have a better life.
yeah,
But he had to choose it. So communicating to him was like communicating to an alien, because it was a whole foreign language that I had to learn. And he taught me so much, you know. And when we talk about aliens, I mean, I look at some of my plants are aliens, and, you know, some of the people I work with are aliens, you know, where you just, even my family, I hope they don't watch this, some of my family are aliens, you know. It's like, I don't really know what you're talking about right now. But I know on another level, I can energetically connect with them and ask them to become present with me. Because
yeah.
often when there's a mismatch in communication, people aren't present, you know?
So what, from your perspective, what is that mismatch? What is happening?
Yeah, I guess, you know, when we talk about we learn to function, when I was mentioning earlier about when we're a
Yeah,
kid and everything's natural and we're just being us and we're just enjoying and following the moment, and then we get shaped and molded and conformed into becoming a different version of us, and we learn to function in regards to school, education, family, you know, whatever it is, society. And we cut off that most magical, wonderful, authentic part of us. I've forgotten your question, Khushboo. What did you ask me? Went off in the alien world for a minute.
absolutely fine. Like, from your perspective, what is the mismatch? What creates
Oh,
the
yeah.
mismatch in
Yeah.
communication? Yeah,
So I find that the mismatch is because they're so locked into the doing. They're shut down, like Cooper was. They're so shut down and so closed off in a reality that they think is real, that it's like a horse with those blinkers on.
yeah,
They can't see anything else out around them apart from what's directly in front of them. And that's all they can interact with and receive and be. So when I'm trying to communicate from over here about something that is, you know, creative, or it might be an extrapolation kind of conversation where we're looking to make things greater, or it could be about a topic or a subject or a perspective, and there's just the lights are on, but just nobody's home. They just can't grasp any of my conversation. And I feel like I haven't been able to kind of, hello, is anyone in there type thing. So yeah, that's the mismatch for me, that they're so
Yeah.
busy, they're so occupied in here. There's so much chatter and noise and distraction going on here, that to get somebody present to actually communicate and be with you and energetically be present with you and connect,
Yeah.
look you in the eyes or remember what you've said, or actually have like a conversation that is actually really empowering, can be quite challenging with people. And it's, not, some people shut down because it's too much. This world is too intense. It's too much for them. And they
Yeah.
shut down as a way of coping as well.
So, what are some of the tools that you may use in such cases to begin communication? Just some of the first tools that you may go to.
Yeah. So it's like so some people respond to just a really light touch. It's
Yeah.
like sometimes just touching them really lightly gets them present, kind of snaps them out of things. But, talking in a softer voice, being really gentle, pulling energy from them rather than trying to push and dominate and control and get something out of them or force something.
Yeah.
Just kind of like that magnetic energy that draws them in. Ask them about themselves, find something they're interested in, and start to break down the barriers. And it's like you softening them almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they feel safe that they can, lean into a conversation with you and actually offer part of them to you that maybe they haven't accessed for a long time.
I love it. And I think this would work so much with autistic kids. I think if they've really shut down just some of these things that you're talking about, because I think autistic kids and adults are so much like animals who basically may have shut down because this world is too much.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, can you talk about how animals would actually help X-Men? And in
Yeah.
Access, just a little side note, in Access, we call it's an endearing term for everybody who has ADD, ADHD, autism, and OCD. We call them X-Men.
Yeah, those that have been considered they've got a disorder or they're disabled or somehow less than, which is actually the total opposite of what is actually
Yeah.
occurring. Animals are phenomenal because they have no agenda. They don't speak in, say one thing and do another. They don't lie. They're very clean energetically. What you see is what you get. And I think for a lot of autistic people, that's exactly how they function. Lies confuse them. They don't read cues. They don't perceive body language, or they often get really lost or confused in a conversation because what's coming out of here is totally mismatched to
Yeah.
what their energy is saying.
Yeah.
So the animals, because they're such a clean, quote unquote, a clean communication, clean space, they're very calming, they're very soothing, and it kind of lowers the cortisol levels, it lowers the hyperactivity that some of these people have, as a result of being overstimulated by their external environment.
Absolutely. Like there are moments where I will just go and put my head on my dog, and that is like,
Yeah.
oh my God, thank you.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and he's not doing anything, but I'm just like, and
Yeah.
it's calming. And just walking with my dog every day, just for that 1 hour every night, is something that I require, something that calms my
Mm.
nervous system down, that,
Yeah.
lets me process things faster, easier. Also calms my it just gives me a sense of peace, which is, I think, what happens to most aliens around animals.
Yeah, totally. And interesting what you were just saying too, because animals don't have barriers,
Yeah.
they don't separate.
Yeah.
People separate, or they think they can separate, they put walls and barriers and defenses in place, thinking that that's going to protect them from being hurt. And, a lot of these people on the spectrum, they don't have barriers. They're wide open. They're highly aware of energy. They're highly psychic, where they can pick up other people's thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, what's going on with their body, where their head's at in the conversation, and so again, an animal affords that space and the quiet, because there is no worrying going on in the animals' heads. They're just present. They're just being with their body and their environment.
I love it. Okay, the quiet, especially, it's like that's what I think most of us are trying to, at least to me, it's the quiet that I want to reach out for with animals. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So,
You're
this has been a brilliant conversation. So, just to end this, if anyone there has an animal, what is one of the first tools that you may give them, just so that they have ease?
Yeah, I get one of them is to acknowledge that animals, they know exactly where you're at. They know exactly where you're at. So they perceive energy. And obviously a dog is different to a cat, is different to a horse, If you're coming in with a very static type energy, the horse will walk away from it. It doesn't want to be around that energy. If you've got that static energy, your dog might come up and try and soothe you or comfort you or keep nudging you or put its head on your lap. Cats can do anything because they are the most unpredictable animals on the face of the planet when it comes to, I'm talking domestic. They want to be with you, they will. And if they don't, they don't. They don't have a point to.
Yeah.
So to know that animals totally perceive everything that's going on for you energetically, and it's not to judge yourself if you're having a bad day. It's just to acknowledge, you know what? Yeah, I'm pretty prickly today.
Yeah. I love that. They know exactly what's going on. And I can see that that my dog knows that like every time. And he has his own ways of sort of facilitating things for me. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They are so intuitive, so intuitive. And I'm really grateful these days too, because that awareness as to the gift that, especially dogs, we've got sniffer dogs, we've got seeing eye dogs, but we've also got dogs that can alert their owner if they're diabetic and their blood sugars are going out of whack because they smell differently. The dog perceives them. Or it could be, like dogs that are trained to sense when the epileptic people are getting close to having a seizure, or these animals are trained in so many different ways. They're becoming a lot more recognized for what they can actually perceive and contribute to us.
I love it. I look forward to a world where that is, and I don't mean this all animals are my friends and you live with, a lion in your house kind of way, but I look forward to a world where there's true communion between us and animals. Um, true environmental communion with them. And I think talking to the animals is such a gift to having that in our future.
Yeah.
So
yes, definitely. And just to expand your awareness, to instead of maybe living in this shut down world where everything is whatever's going on in your world is so highly relevant and it consumes you and takes away, your ability to have an expanded sense of perception that there's a whole other environment going on around you that your energy is affecting, Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Viv, for this brilliant conversation. There's been so many nuggets of wisdom throughout. So those people who are listening to this, and if you would like to have a better relationship with your animals or just animals in general, if you are one of them whose parents don't allow them to have animals at home when you are a kid, reach out for some of these beautiful classes. And the book that she spoke about, it is absolutely brilliant. We'll put this all in the description. And thank you, Viv. It's been another brilliant conversation.
Thank you, Khushboo. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. To know more, check out my website www.the-earthlings.com To know more about Access Consciousness, go to www.accessconsciousness.com. If this contributed to you, do share and invite more listeners, and don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next episode.